Hello. Welcome to tonight's bedtime story by Lucid Tales. I hope your day has been full of song and merriment, but whether it has been the pleasant wine with friends or the gin hangover for you, it's time to relax now. Find somewhere comfortable, maybe your bed or a favourite armchair, and make sure you're ready for sleep. Take off your shoes if you can, and feel the freedom in your toes, the little loosening that means it's time for bed. Tonight's story is a Norse one, of Idun and her apples, and the twisty wiles of Loki. Back in the world of forever ago, and sometimes still today, the great Aesir lived in Asgard, that vast and sweeping realm that flowed with beauty and power. In those golden halls they feasted and made merry and were kept young and hearty by the powers of Idun's bright apples that gave them eternal life and strength. But they were not there always. At one time, three together, Odin, Loki and Hunir, went travelling across the river Iving and through Jotunheim, the land of the giants. Long and far they ranged, climbing mountains and diving deep through forests. One night, they caught and killed an ox and set it to roast on their fire. But after many hours had passed, it was still raw. They set it back into the embers again. Yet more hours passed, and still the ox was not cooked. They tried for a third time, and yet again, strange as can be, the ox came out uncooked. Loki, who was the hungriest and angriest of the three, cast around for something to blame, when all of a sudden he caught sight of a great eagle above them that was fanning the fire with its mighty wings, sending great gusts of icy air down to cool it. Loki grew angry and leapt to his feet, but the eagle was not afraid. "That is no eagle," said Odin, recognizing it for a giant in feathered guise. "Indeed I am not," said the eagle, who was called Thiassi. "But I will help you to cook this ox if you will share it with me, and let me eat first." What could they do? Odin agreed, and the eagle changed the movement of its wings to fan the flames into a roaring inferno. In a very short time the meal was cooked, and the eagle descended upon the great carcass as the Aesir pulled it out from the fire. To their anger it ate not just an equal share, but both hind legs and shoulders, leaving little for the three of them. Loki, in a rage, stood up and struck at the eagle with a great stick. But to his terror it fastened hard somewhere within the eagle's deep plumage, and the mighty eagle spread its wings and took off, carrying him into the sky. Loki found his hands unable to let go of the stick, and was carried many leagues, sometimes high over mountains and sometimes low, so that he dragged in the trees, and branches whipped at his face and made him bleed. Fearing that his arms would be torn from him, he begged Thiassi to set him free, but he would not. Instead, he demanded payment. "If you swear a solemn oath to bring me Idun with her golden apples, then I will let you go." And so Loki swore. At length, bedraggled and torn, he found Odin and Hunir and returned to Asgard with them. But that sworn oath would not let him rest. He went to Idun's garden, where she sat contentedly with her basket of beautiful apples. He flopped down beside her and sighed sadly as he looked at them. "What is wrong, Loki?" Idun asked. "Once I had only to look upon your apples to feel refreshed," Loki said with another sigh. "But how can they have the same effect on me now, when I have seen apples far more beautiful than yours outside the walls of Asgard?" Idun laughed. "Is that all? Well, I am sure they may look more beautiful, but they cannot hope to match the flavour." "Alas," Loki shook his head, "they indeed far outstrip the flavour of even your most perfect crop." Idun gave him a wry glance and laughed again. "Well, they sound marvellous indeed, Loki, but only my apples have the power to replenish and heal, and to keep the body and mind young. Loki grinned at her. But Idun, that is simply not true. These apples, when I tasted them, made me feel just as refreshed and healed as your own. You certainly look it, she said, eyeing his ragged clothing and torn flesh. I had a mishap on the way home, Loki explained. And now all I can think is that I wish I had been going the other way. That I might eat of those apples to replenish me. I would dearly like to see these apples, if they are so wonderful as you say. Why not, said Loki, and jumped to his feet. Let us go now. It is not far beyond the wall. You could bring your apples to compare. And so Idun followed Loki out of her garden and to the very edge of Osgarde, and then further still beyond the wall, carrying in her arms everything that made it eternal. Without warning, Thiassi in eagle plumage struck, and closed its talons around Idun's waist and her basket of apples, and flew away like the howling of wind with her toward his home in Thrymheim. And now Loki returned home, wearier than ever, and feeling grey within himself. He spoke to no one of Idun's disappearance, but when the gods gathered for their feast the next morning, she was not there. Day by slow day, the flashing light began to dim and fade from the gods' eyes. Their bones began to creak and muscles to wither, their beards to sprout white hairs. They were growing old, and quickly. Even Bragi, the god of poetry, could make no music while his beloved wife was gone he knew not where. Morning after morning, dawn light broke on fading faces and furrowed brows, until the gods could bear it no longer. They called a great meeting and traced to the very hour when Idun had left. And someone remembered that Loki that day had left Osgarde by her side. Loki was summoned, and before their haggard, wizening faces he quailed and promised to rescue Idun if only Freyja would lend him her falcon dress. She agreed, and no sooner had he put it on than he was soaring high into the sky above Osgarde and darting like the wind toward Thrymheim. After a long, weary flight, Loki arrived at Thrymheim, and to his delight discovered that Thiassi was not at home, having gone out fishing, and Idun was alone in that desolate hall. She cut a lonely figure in that great cold place, her mouth turned down unhappily as she clutched her basket of golden apples tightly to her. She had not allowed Thiassi to eat even one. And so Loki changed Idun in her apples, and sealed them safely inside a nut, which he held tightly in his claws. He took off like a feathered streak across the sky, flying even faster than he had on the way there, regardless of his exhaustion. It would do them no good if Thiassi caught up with them. At length Loki heard the beating of great furious wings behind him, and he knew that Thiassi had discovered Idun's escape and followed with vengeance in his heart. Loki flew faster still, straining with every feather to stay ahead of the giant's great eagle disguise. But the sweep and roar of those vast pinions far outstripped the speed of a weary falcon, and little by little Thiassi gained on them. The mountains fled by below, and the land opened up toward the evening, sparkling under the pale light ahead. Loki flew on, his wings trembling as he strained to snatch every last bit of distance from the howling death that flew behind. The gods, pale and haggard, watched the race with tremulous hearts, for all their power and strength lay in the speed of Loki's wings before the eagle. As Thiassi sped like a flash of lightning, steadily gaining on the falcon and looking to overtake, the gods gathered great mounds of firewood and brush and prepared a great pyre. At last, with fainting, wilting wings, the little falcon flew over the wall of Osgarde and dropped like a stone into the hands of Freyja. The gods immediately lit their great pyre, and flames roared up into the sky in time to catch the great wings of Thiassi, who fell dying to the ground, where the gods finished him off with heavy blows. Idun was transformed back into her usual form. and with sympathy and gratitude did she distribute her golden apples to the failing gods. The fruit appeared to shine with unearthly beauty to them, and they ate thankfully. Like the slow trickle of warmth from a sunbeam, the lines cleared from their faces and their locks grew glossy and bright again. Their eyes once more flashed with divine light, and their limbs became strong. Bragi kissed his wife warmly, and his music was heard once again throughout Ausgarde. Good night. Sleep well, and I will see you tomorrow for another bedtime story.